in regards to in relations to the human life and the book, the faith followers and the believers, there is that contradiction. It becomes a controversial book. It becomes a sensitive topic, sensitive topic that you and I would like to look into, that you and I demand to look into, you and I have a responsibility to look into. And I'm not the only one. I'm sure many people, that the institutions themselves sit down and they sort of analyze it every day. But the thing is, most of all these people would like to keep it within. Nobody want to just put it out there, because there are some elements that needs to be considered. If you can just throw it all out there and say, this is it, no. It has cultural significance. It has strong religious basis significance that needs to be considered at all times, because it somehow has spoken to millions of people from generation to generation. And so it has to be carefully changed with reasons behind it. If you check dictionaries, you check, Bible commentaries and all those things, from time to time, people has made comment, people has come up with understanding of whatever it may be to sort of justify the faith, and not just Christians, Qurans, and all the way, But I only look at it from the basic and simple approach. If God was Allah, let me talk about Allah first. If Allah was speaking to the Bangladeshis, or was speaking to the Chinese, or was speaking to the English, or was speaking to the even among the Arabian Peninsula, they have different languages. Let's say he was speaking to sort of those in the Greeks area, or let's say outside of Saudi Arabia, maybe Egypt, or whatever place that is in the peninsula but speaks differently. If Allah was, let's say the Jews, they now all have similar language speech, approach, but maybe if he was speaking to them. And I know the Jews will reject Muhammad in various ways, because they don't consider him as a true son of Abraham, or somehow coming from that descendant. For a long time, the Jews have always been, self-centered. They're not outside of that. They have been told to do so. They teach the teachings, they believe the faith they have to mold them to be like that. They are one of the examples one can use. The same way the teachings and the moldings that you may get from your cultural background, your father or whatever backgrounds they may have, will mold you to become what you are. You may be a man or a woman at a certain point, and you may not realize that this is what has made you a man or a woman. You may deny it, but it is undeniable. Because when you're out there, it just shows. And if anybody knows your background, they can say, oh, this is the son of that, this is the daughter of that, easily, just like that. So somehow Muhammad, to the Jews, is rejected, just as they rejected even some of the Jews that they had no respect to, because they thought the person was born in a wrong location, or maybe they have doubts about the prophecy. They rejected Jesus, they rejected Yehoshua and all that. Yehoshua, Jesus is Hebrew. In a Hebrew sense, he's being known as Yehoshua. That's what I've learned. And I normally preferably like to call him Yehoshua, because I have doubts about the translation. I see the translation as unnecessary, because the Jewish people now, with their Jewish names, they go all around the world with the same name. I don't go anywhere translating my name. I don't see why the name was translated by the Europeans or by the Greeks or by the Latins. I don't know why they did. But however they did the translation, it has maybe helped them to develop their own faith, their own God, blended, or let's say a faith that is emulating what really happened in the Jewish land. That man, Yehoshua, and what he went through. So it's like the imitation has been done through the Latins, through the Greeks, and as they got it through the Hebrew. And now the Europeans have shared it all around. We now have the English translation, the Spanish, the polish the, because Europe is quite a huge place. Even the Russians have got theirs also, So all those changes, I don't really. So I know Jesus is to be accepted as Yehoshua, but he was rejected. So Muhammad, in every sense, will be rejected. Just like even in the storyline, Ishmael was not very much likened or embraced by Muhammad himself, or by Abraham himself, or Sarah, because he was seen as the son of a slave, maid servant. That's the idea. Now, so the whole blessed followers of Arabians have got some strong rivalry with the Isaac side of the descendants. That's the son of Abraham. Isaac side of, what do you call it, followers. And even if you turn to Isaac himself, with his two sons of Esau and Jacob, they also strike against each other, because Esau and Jacob did not get on very well. Esau turns his faith, his life towards what they would call at that time the Gentiles, and developed a life of, what do you call it, polygamous way with those Gentiles, which was much more of, maybe I will relate to the descendants of more of Ishmael or whatever, and it was very much against what Isaac would have preferred, and his wife would have preferred for their son. So they sort of liked Jacob, who listened to them and went all the way to marry a cousin of his, and with them they were more practicing incest in a more deeper sense. So the book, the Jews and the story of the Bible is all practicing incest in a day. But at some point, incest is very revealed as something which is very bad and wrong. I mean, those who are deep into the Bible, those who have also find themselves caught up with the incest practice. As I remember, I brought up in the video that there was a guy in America who was practicing these things. His background was a Latter-day Saint believer, and he was practicing these things among his church. And his incest practice, breeding from that kind of procreating from that kind of background or that sense. And he ended up, having issues within the church, or somehow hatred went towards him. He was, I think he's been locked up in prison at the moment. And not just him, there are many people who fall into that category. So the world has chosen a certain way, despite the claim of Christianity and claim whatever, Jewish or Islam or whatever. We claim something and we look somewhere else. We doubt it. We do not believe in everything or the advice or the ways or the true practice of the book. And yet we choose to claim that it is our book. It is what we have to follow, or I don't know how we follow it, by doing something else. But not necessarily that I want to do that or that. But the thing is, if this is what we have to follow, I'm pointing out what really we have to do. What is more truthful and more abiding and more obedience. What is more obedient to do when you come to the Bible or the Quran is what I am trying to pull out. And if we don't do that, or if we are not doing that, we haven't got authority or the audacity to sort of feel within ourselves, or the right to sort of make claim to be a follower of the book or the authors of the book. Because the authors of the book probably do the same thing or follow through, and they were with their God and their God with them. Why do you do otherwise? But if these things are very difficult and every day we are drifting away, drifting far away from the ways of the book, then that to suggest to us that this is not truly what we embrace, or this is not truly what we believe, and this is not truly something that is acceptable to us. It's not a way of life for us, and we must decide to know this now and become, our eyes should open to this now, rather than wait and drown ourselves. Rather than waiting and drowning ourselves by the confusion that we keep having, accusing others who choose to follow through with it. But in some higher levels, among the kings and the queens, I think it's still practice, because they